Story 1. The Bus Stop Stranger. This happened in Portland, Oregon back when I was still in high school. I was 16, tired from an evening study group at a friend's house, and just wanted to get home. It had been raining non-stop all day, but by the time I reached the bus stop, it wasn't just rain anymore. It was a downpour so heavy, it felt like the entire sky was collapsing. The streetlights along Division Street flickered like they were seconds away from shutting off completely. The road was deserted, and the only sound I could hear besides the rain hammering against the pavement was the occasional groan of thunder echoing in the distance. I pulled my hood tight and ducked under the small bus shelter, pressing my back against the cold, damp glass. The storm made the city feel dead. I couldn't shake this eerie sense that something about that night wasn't right. And then, it hit me. That feeling, the one where your body realizes it's being watched before your mind catches up. I turned my head slowly. Across the street, half hidden in the rain and shadows, was a figure, a man. He wasn't walking, wasn't holding an umbrella, wasn't doing anything at all. He was just standing perfectly still in the middle of the sidewalk, like a broken mannequin, dumped on the street. At first I thought maybe he was waiting for someone, maybe another bus. But the longer I stared, the stranger it seemed. He wasn't shifting his weight, wasn't fidgeting with his phone, wasn't moving at all. Lightning cracked across the sky, and for a split second, I saw his face clearly. His eyes were wide open, unblinking, and fixed on me. The rain was pouring so hard, it should have forced him to at least wipe his face or turn away. But he didn't. He just stood there, letting the storm drench him completely. A chill ran down my spine. I told myself not to panic. Maybe he was just a drunk guy. Maybe he didn't even notice me. But deep down, I knew better. He noticed me. Minutes dragged by. The bus was nowhere in sight. I kept my eyes down, pretending to scroll through my phone, though my hands were trembling too much to even type. Every time lightning lit up the street, I checked again, and every time, he was still there, until he WASN. Single quotes. The fourth time lightning flashed, he was gone. I froze, scanning the rain-soaked street. My heart hammered in my chest. Where did he go? He couldn't have just vanished. I pressed my face against the shelter glass, looking left and right. The sidewalks were empty. The crosswalk was empty. The man was right in front of me. I don't even know how he crossed the street so fast. But there he was, standing less than 30 feet away, just outside the bus shelter. His head was still, tilted at that unnatural angle, like his neck was too weak to hold it straight. His clothes were plastered to his body, his dark coat dripping, but his face, that's what froze me. His lips were stretched into the faintest grin, but his eyes stayed wide and glassy, like he wasn't fully human. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. The storm was screaming all around me, but all I could hear was the blood pounding in my ears. He started walking, not fast, not slow, just this steady, deliberate pace, straight toward me. Each step echoed against the wet pavement, louder than the storm itself. I wanted to run, but my legs were locked in place. My hands clutched my backpack straps so tightly my knuckles ached. Closer, closer, closer. By the time he reached the edge of the bus shelter, he stopped, just inches from the glass, and he leaned forward, pressing his forehead against it. Rainwater ran down his face like black tears. He never blinked. He just stared at me through the glass. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. Then he lifted his hand, slowly, shakily, and dragged one long finger across the glass, leaving a streak in the condensation. At first, I thought he was just smearing it randomly, but as he continued, I realized he was writing something. 3 words, I see you. The letters dripped down the glass in the rain. I staggered back, clutching the bench behind me. That was when I heard it, faint at first, but growing louder. The sound of an engine? The bus was finally coming. Headlights cut through the rain as the bus approached. Relief surged through me so hard I almost cried. But the man didn't move. He kept his forehead pressed against the glass, his hand lingering over the words he'd just written. The bus screeched to a halt, brakes hissing. The doors swung open with a loud hiss. "Come on, kid," the driver yelled over the storm. I bolted out of the shelter, ran straight past the man, and jumped onto the bus. My heart was hammering so violently I thought it might burst. I turned around to see if he was following me, but he wasn't following. He was standing right at the edge of the shelter, staring at the bus, his head still tilted. And then for the first time, his grin widened, not a normal grin. His lips stretched so unnaturally far that it looked like his mouth was tearing at the corners. The bus doors slammed shut and we pulled away. I collapsed into a seat, gasping for air, watching through the rain-streaked window. And that's when I saw it. The man wasn't standing under the shelter anymore. He was running alongside the bus. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. His bare feet slapped against the pavement, keeping pace with a moving bus. His head bobbed unnaturally with every step, but his eyes never left mine. The driver shouted something, probably asking what was going on, but I couldn't respond. My whole body was paralyzed with terror. Then, without warning, the man slammed his hand against the side of the bus. The loud, wet thud echoed through the metal frame. Passengers gasped. The driver hit the gas, swerving onto the main road. The man finally stumbled, falling back into the storm. But even as he disappeared into the night, I swear I could still see those words dripping on the glass. "I see you." I didn't. Sleep for days after that. My parents tried to convince me it was just some crazy homeless guy. But deep down, I know it wasn't that simple. There was something wrong with his face, his movements, the way he ran. Something inhuman. 4 months after, every time it rained, I refused to leave the house. And even now, years later, whenever I'm waiting for a bus and lightning flashes across the sky, I can't help but glance at the other side of the street, because I'll never forget the night the stranger stood in the storm, staring straight into my soul. And I know, someday, I'll see him again. Story 2. The knock at the cabin. A few winters ago, my family rented a small cabin outside Asheville, North Carolina. It was supposed to be a quiet weekend escape. Just me, my mom, my dad, and my younger sister. The cabin sat deep in the woods, up a narrow gravel road that twisted for miles. By the time we got there, the sun was setting behind the Blue Ridge Mountains, and rain was starting to fall. The forecast had promised clear skies, but the storm hit hard. That first night, the rain didn't stop. It pounded against the roof so loudly, I could barely hear myself think. The wind groaned through the trees, making the whole cabin creak, and that was when the knocking started. At first I thought it was just the storm shaking the porch furniture, but then I heard it again. 3 distinct knocks. Boom, boom, boom. Slow, heavy, intentional. I froze in bed. My sister was asleep in the bunk above me, my parents in the other room. I strained my ears. The rain thundered against the roof, but through it, I heard it again. Boom, boom, boom. Someone was at the front door. I slid out of bed and tiptoed toward the window. The front porch light was on, flickering with the storm, casting long shadows across the wet wood. And there he was, a man, standing on the porch, facing the door. His clothes were soaked through, his arms hanging stiff at his sides. His face was pale, almost gray, and though the rain was hitting him full force, he didn't flinch. He didn't even try to knock again. He just stood there, watching. My heart raced. I wanted to scream for my parents, but something inside me whispered not to. Like if I made a sound, I'd invite him in. Suddenly, his head jerked upward, his face turned toward my window. Even from across the yard, in the pouring rain, I swear his eyes locked right on mine. I gasped and stumbled back, slamming into the nightstand. The lamp rattled, almost falling. I scrambled back into bed, yanking the blanket over my head like I was 5 years old again. My chest was heaving, and then the knocking returned. Boom, 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 boom. This time, it was louder, harder, like he knew I had seen him. My dad's footsteps thudded down the hall. The door creaked open, and he whispered, "Did you hear that?" I nodded, silently, too scared to speak. He grabbed the old hunting rifle he kept in the cabin closet and stormed toward the front door. My mom followed, trying to calm him down. I crawled to the hallway, peeking around the corner. Dad yanked the door open. The porch was empty. Only muddy footprints remained, leading away from the porch and into the dark woods. But that wasn't the worst part. The prints didn't just lead away. They circled the cabin, a full loop, all the way around. It wasn't like he had come for shelter. He had been walking around us, watching. My dad swore under his breath and stepped out onto the porch, aiming the rifle toward the trees. "If anyone's out there, you better leave right now," he shouted, but the only answer was the storm. We locked every door and window after that. My dad stayed up in the living room, rifle across his lap. My mom tried to comfort us, but I could see the fear in her eyes. I crawled back into bed, but sleep was impossible. Every creak of the cabin sounded like footsteps. Every gust of wind against the walls made my heart jump. Then, sometime after 2 a.m., I heard it again. Not at the front door this time, at the back. Boom, boom, boom. 3 knocks. I held my breath, clutching the blanket so tight my knuckles hurt. The back door was closer to my room than the front. The knocks rattled through the thin wooden walls like thunder. I slid out of bed again and peeked through the blinds. There he was, standing on the back porch now, closer than before. His head tilted unnaturally far to one side, like his neck was broken. His grin stretched wider than it should have, lips splitting against his pale skin. He lifted his hand slowly and pressed it against the glass window of the back door. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. His fingers slid down the glass, leaving 5 long streaks. And then, just like before, he knocked again. Boom, 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 dot. The sound rattled the glass in its frame. My dad burst into the kitchen, rifle raised. He aimed straight at the door. "Get the hell out of here," he yelled. But the man didn't move, didn't flinch. He just stood there, rain dripping down his hollow face, staring at us, and then, without warning, he vanished, not turned and ran, not stepped off the porch. One blink, he was there. The next, he was gone. The storm raged on for the rest of the night, but there were no more knocks. In the morning, when the rain finally cleared, we stepped outside. The muddy footprints were still there, but this time, they didn't just circle the cabin. They led into the woods and stopped, like whoever, or whatever, had been out there disappeared into thin air. To this day, I'll never forget the sound of those knocks echoing through the storm, and sometimes, when it rains hard enough, at night, I swear, I can still hear it. Boom, boom, boom. Story 3. The Man on the Road. It was almost midnight when I left work that night. I was driving down a long stretch of Highway 64 in Tennessee, the kind of road that feels endless, with nothing but trees on either side, no cars, no houses, no lights, just miles of cracked asphalt and forest. The radio barely worked out there, cutting in and out with static. The rain had started again, soft at first, then heavier, my wipers struggling to keep up. That's when I saw him, a man, standing on the side of the road. At first I thought maybe his car had broken down. He wasn't waving though. He wasn't asking for help. He was just standing there, perfectly still, his head lowered so I couldn't see his face. I slowed down, debating whether I should stop, but something about him felt wrong. His clothes looked torn, like he'd been in an accident, yet there was no car, no debris, nothing. As I drove past, I finally saw his face, and I wished I hadn't. His eyes were wide open, too wide, like the lids had been peeled back, and his mouth, God, His mouth was stretched into a grin, so sharp it looked carved into his skin. For a split second, I swore he was looking right at me. I pressed the gas, my heart hammering, desperate to get away. The rain blurred everything outside, but I didn't dare look in the rearview mirror. I told myself it was just some drunk, some crazy guy, that's all. But then a figure appeared ahead, the same man, standing in the middle of the road. This time, just a few hundred feet in front of my car. I slammed the brakes. The tires screeched across wet asphalt, the car skidding sideways before coming to a stop just yards from him. My chest heaved. My hands gripped the wheels so tight my nails dug into my skin. The man didn't move, didn't flinch. He just tilted his head, slowly, too slowly, like a puppet being pulled by invisible strings. I flicked my high beams on, and that's when I saw it. His feet weren't touching the ground. He was hovering, just an inch or two above the asphalt, swaying slightly in the rain. I slammed the into reverse, my tires spinning against the wet road. But before I could move, he was gone, vanished. I sat, frozen, my breath fogging the windshield. The road ahead was empty again, just rain and darkness. I forced myself forward, driving faster this time, desperate to get back to town. For a few minutes, nothing happened. The forest blurred by, my headlights slicing through the storm. Then I saw it in the rearview mirror, a pale face, smiling in the back seat. I screamed and swerved, nearly losing control of the car. My eyes darted back to the mirror. The seat was empty, nothing there. My hands trembled on the wheel, knuckles white, as I forced myself to keep driving. I told myself I was imagining things, sleep-deprived, stressed, anything but real. But then another flash of lightning lit up the road, and I saw him again. This time, standing on the shoulder, closer than ever. No matter how far I drove, he was there, every mile, every flash of lightning, always ahead, waiting on the roadside. Just long enough for me to see his twisted grin before the darkness swallowed him again. The rain was deafening, my wipers screeching against the glass, my pulse pounding in my ears, and then, without warning, my car stalled, the engine cut out. The lights went dark. I was stranded. Panic set in instantly. I twisted the key, slammed the gas, nothing. The car was dead. The rain pelted the roof like nails. My breath came in sharp bursts, fogging the windshield, and then knock, 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 3 slow taps against my driver's side window. I turned my head, and there he was, his face pressed against the glass, eyes bulging, lips stretched so far the skin had split. I screamed and shoved the locks down, fumbling with my phone. No signal. The man's hand slid down the glass, leaving streaks of mud door. Was it blood? Across the window then, just as suddenly? As he appeared, he was gone. The car roared back to life, headlights flickering on. I slammed the gas and sped down the highway, not daring to look back again. When I finally reached town, I pulled into the first gas station I saw and broke down, sobbing. The attendant asked me what was wrong, but I couldn't answer because I knew he wouldn't believe me. No one would, but I'll never forget that grin. And sometimes, when I'm driving alone at night and the rain starts to fall, I catch myself checking the roadside because part of me knows he's still out there.